You're listening to the Everything Jewish 10 Minutes at a Time podcast, where you'll learn about every Jewish topic imaginable in about 10 minutes. Now, as always, a quick disclaimer. My Hebrew pronunciation can sometimes sound like Siri trying to read hieroglyphics. Don't worry, though. Today, I'll mostly just say God. We'll save the names like Adonai or Hashem for a future episode, because yes, Jews actually have a whole buffet of divine names, each with its own flavor. Today's topic is simply God. Yep, the big one. The main character of the Jewish story. The presence you see in Torah, in synagogue prayers, in philosophy debates, and even in your grandma's, "Oi, God forbid." Jewish life has always been tied to some understanding of God, whether that's as creator, judge, parent, shepherd, infinite mystery, or cosmic Wi-Fi connecting everyone. So buckle up. In 10 minutes, we'll take a roller coaster ride through thousands of years of Jewish thinking about the Almighty, and yes, we'll keep it fun, light, and digestible. The Jewish idea of God starts right at the beginning, Genesis. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. No origin story, no family tree of gods, no thunderbolt slinging Zeus, no Thor with fancy hair, just God. That was revolutionary in the ancient world. Most civilizations had a whole team of gods with job titles: rain god, war god, love goddess, you name it. Israelite religion broke the mold. One God, beyond nature, creator of all. This wasn't just a numbers game, one versus many. It was about the type of God. In Judaism, God wasn't just part of the universe, like Poseidon chilling in the sea. God was outside of it all, bringing it into being. That's like upgrading from a Netflix subscription with multiple shows to realizing the entire platform itself was designed by one programmer. This idea of monotheism shaped everything: laws, ethics, holidays, and a sense of history. The Torah paints God as personal yet powerful, speaking to Abraham, splitting seas, and handing down commandments. As the story moves into the prophets, the Jewish idea of God evolves. God isn't just a miracle worker or lawgiver, but a moral compass. Isaiah, Jeremiah, Amos, all those prophetic heavy hitters make it clear. God cares less about how many sheep you sacrifice and more about how you treat people. Justice, kindness, humility, that's what God really wants. This makes Judaism different from religions where gods can be bribed with offerings. You can't slip God a fruit basket and hope he looks the other way. Instead, prophets insist that God demands righteousness, caring for widows, orphans, and strangers. It's like the ancient version of God saying, "Don't tell me how often you hit the synagogue if you're a jerk in business." This concept of God as the ultimate ethical force influenced Christianity and Islam too. But for Jews, it remained central. God isn't just cosmic power, but also cosmic conscience. That's why synagogue readings still emphasize prophetic calls for justice right alongside Torah's rituals. God as moral watchdog. Now let's time travel to the rabbis of the Talmud, around 200 to 500 CE. These guys loved debating, and naturally, God was at the top of their discussion list. But instead of writing one neat theology book, they left us with thousands of pages of arguments, parables, and jokes. Sometimes God is portrayed as close and intimate, crying with Israel in exile. Other times, God is portrayed as distant and inscrutable, running the universe with logic we can't grasp. The rabbis also emphasized partnership. God gave humans Torah, but expects us to interpret and apply it. That's why a classic Talmudic story has the rabbis overriding a heavenly voice in a legal debate, basically saying, "Sorry, God, you gave us free will and Torah study, so we're in charge down here." This playful yet serious approach makes Judaism unique. God is not just dictator in the sky, but also conversation partner. Think of it like a group chat where one member technically owns the phone plan, but the others still argue about emojis and rules. Then came the philosophers, especially Maimonides, aka Rambam, in the 12th century. He lived in Islamic Spain and Egypt, reading Aristotle as much as Torah. For him, God wasn't the bearded old man on a cloud, but an abstract, infinite being. Maimonides insisted we can't really describe God at all. Every positive description limits God. So instead, he used negative theology. Don't say God is wise. Say God is not ignorant. Don't say God is powerful. Say God is not weak. Basically, God is beyond human language, like trying to describe the internet with caveman words. His guide for the perplexed tried to reconcile faith with reason, showing Judaism as compatible with science and philosophy. Not everyone loved it. Some Jews found it too cold and rational. But his view influenced centuries of thinkers. Maimonides' God is more like an infinite principle of existence than a character in a Bible story, which makes him a favorite among philosophy nerds and theologians to this day. Of course, not everyone wanted a philosopher's God. Enter the mystics of Kabbalah in medieval Spain and later in Safed Israel. They gave us a God that's cosmic and colorful. Instead of abstract logic, Kabbalists spoke of Ein Sof, the infinite, and Sephirot, the divine attributes like wisdom, kindness, and strength, through which God interacts with the world. Picture God as shining light filtered through a prism, breaking into multiple colors. Each color is real, but together they form the full light. This mystical God is interactive and dynamic. The Kabbalists also emphasized tikkun olam, repairing the world, as not just social action, but literally cosmic repair, restoring harmony to the divine structure. Suddenly, your mitzvah of lighting Shabbat candles isn't just about ambiance. It's about fixing spiritual circuitry in the universe. Mysticism gave Jews a sense of intimacy with God through meditation, prayer, and even secret formulas. It's like switching from philosophy class to a Marvel movie. Suddenly, the cosmos is alive with drama, energy, and sparks of holiness. Fast forward to the 18th century and Hasidism. Picture Jewish mysticism made friendly, musical, and communal. Founded by the Baal Shem Tov, Hasidism taught that God is everywhere, in the synagogue, yes, but also in your kitchen, your laughter, even your shoelaces. No fancy education required. Simple joy and heartfelt prayer connect you to God. Think of it as spiritual democratization, like turning divine Wi-Fi into free public Wi-Fi. Hasidic stories often describe rebbes, spiritual leaders who can sense God in everyday life. Dancing, singing, storytelling, these became ways of connecting to God, not just long intellectual debates. For Hasidim, the world is saturated with divine presence, and holiness can be found in the ordinary. Of course, not everyone was on board. The more scholarly Misnagdim, opponents, worried Hasidism was too emotional. But over time, Hasidism reshaped Jewish spirituality, offering a God of closeness and joy. This image of God still lives on today in Hasidic communities, Shabbat outreach, and even in Jewish music festivals worldwide. Now to modern times. Different Jewish denominations approach God in diverse ways. Orthodox Jews often emphasize traditional belief in a personal, commanding God. Conservative Jews might balance tradition with modern scholarship, leaving room for metaphorical understandings. Reform Jews often interpret God more symbolically, as a force for justice, hope, or meaning, rather than a literal being. Reconstructionist Jews, following Mordecai Kaplan, go further. God is not supernatural at all, but the sum of forces that make for human salvation, like creativity, morality, and community. Basically, a very human-centered God. Across all denominations, belief varies widely. Some Jews are deeply theistic, others culturally Jewish but agnostic. Pew surveys show many Jews identify as Jewish but not religious, yet still say they believe in something. So modern Judaism leaves lots of space. God can be a cosmic king, an inspiring metaphor, or even a question mark. That flexibility is part of why Judaism has survived in such diverse times and places. We also need to mention comparisons. Christianity developed from Judaism but emphasized God's incarnation in Jesus, a concept Judaism firmly rejects. Islam, meanwhile, shares Judaism's strict monotheism and even some of its names for God, but places emphasis on the Quran as God's final revelation. Judaism remains distinctive. No images, no incarnations, no multiple persons. Just one indivisible God beyond human form. Jewish humor often pokes at this. Think of Woody Allen quips about God's silence, or Mel Brooks imagining God giving commandments like a Broadway routine. Pop culture versions of God, like in Bruce Almighty or The Simpsons, usually reflect Christian-influenced images, not Jewish ones. For Jews, depicting God visually has always been off-limits. Instead, God is encountered through text, prayer, ritual, and life itself. That's why Jewish art focuses on symbols like the menorah, Star of David, or Hebrew letters, rather than painting God. The uniqueness of Jewish monotheism lies in its refusal to domesticate God into a picture. So where does that leave us? In Judaism, God has been creator, judge, teacher, partner, infinite mystery, cosmic light, and loving presence. Sometimes God feels near, sometimes distant, sometimes rational, sometimes mystical, sometimes communal, sometimes personal. Judaism never nailed down one single definition, and maybe that's the point. God is too big for one box, one book, or one style of worship. Instead, the Jewish tradition keeps the conversation alive through Torah study, prayer, philosophy, mysticism, debate, song, and even jokes. You could say the Jewish God is both the subject of endless arguments and the glue that keeps those arguments meaningful. Whether you're a believer, doubter, mystic, philosopher, or someone just looking for a little spiritual Wi-Fi, Judaism gives you a seat at the table. And remember, this episode only covered the God overview. Next time, we'll dive into the many names of God in Judaism, which is like learning God's nicknames and screen names across history. Stay tuned. It's going to be divine.